Hey there, I'm Teri Thomas, and welcome to Teri's Next Chapter. Today, I'm talking about a book that means so much to me because it came to me at a time in my life when my life was kind of spinning out of control. And the book I'm going to talk about, and this is actually the copy from 1998. It's Take Time for Your Life by Cheryl Richardson. I'm going to talk more about it, but I want to tell you a little bit about what this book actually means to me. You see, this book came to me at a time in my life when my life was spinning out of control, when I had way too much on my plate. It was the fall of 1998, and I was a full-time grad school student. I was taking 4 classes in the evening. I had two of my lovely girls. My oldest was 5 at the time, and my baby was a little over a year. At the same time, I was also caring for my niece, who was 4 months older than my daughter. So they were basically the same age. And I was also answering phones and doing the scheduling for my dad's business. At the time, he had a driving school. And so he had the calls forwarded to me. So during the day, while I was taking care of my own kids and um, I was taking 4 classes at night, but he would have all the calls for the business forwarded to me during daytime hours, probably like 8 to 5 or something like that. And so I would take those calls and run the scheduling part of his business during that time. So as you can imagine, my life was pretty crazy. Um, I still to this day have no idea how I did the reading for my classes. When I wrote papers must have been on the weekends. Oh, and I answered the phones for my dad's business at the time, Monday through Saturday. So the only day off I kind of had was Sunday. But obviously, I was still a mom of 2 young children, and I was in full time grad school. So my life was getting crazy out of control, and I was exhausted. And, I loved my kids and I loved my niece and I loved being able to do all those things. But it was just too much. It was literally too much. And then one day I had a wake up call. And it was a scary experience. Thank God nothing bad happened. But my niece, who was 18 months at the time, actually got outside, and she's alive and well today and thriving. And thank God she went to the backyard, because I guess that's where we, would go outside to play, and not to the front where there was traffic. But that moment was such a wake up call to me that I realized that I just couldn't give everything I was doing the full attention that it needed and deserved. And so I had to really take stock of my life, and I had to have some difficult conversations. I had to talk with my cousin. Now, I say my niece, she's actually my cousin's daughter, but we're super close. My cousin and I were like sisters, and her daughter is like a niece to me, still is. Um, and I had to talk to her and say, I I had to tell her what happened, obviously, and I had to be honest and say, I don't think that I can still take care of her, because I just knew that with my life as full as it was, I couldn't give her what she needed. And it wasn't fair to them. And that was probably one of the hardest conversations I've ever had in my life. Thank God my cousin was totally understanding and supportive, and still is. And she'll come into play with about this book even more in this story. But yeah, that was had to have been one of the hardest conversations of my life. The second conversation that I had was with my dad, who had less understanding because he was more old school, thinking. Um, and I had to tell him that I could no longer do Saturdays, because one day a week for myself was not enough, or for my family. So I told him that I would take the calls Monday through Friday. He did, accepted and stuff. It was a little bit harder, but I have never been that kind of person to what I didn't even know that at that time the word boundaries, it wasn't in the mainstream, I don't think, or maybe it was just coming into the mainstream. But I had to set boundaries, and I wasn't the kind of person, like I've always been a bit of a people pleaser. I've always thought for myself and had my own mind, but when it came to, I just don't like to disappoint people. So those two conversations were two of the hardest that, like I said, that I ever had to have. And it became what I noticed was a recurring theme in my life of that people pleasing and having to set boundaries and having to say no at times. But one thing I'll say that I learned is every no you say is actually a yes to something else that is in your life. So even though I had to say no to things that were important to me and people that I loved, it created the yes in other ways, for me to focus on my own daughters and on my grad school so that I could finish strong. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Every no you say is actually a yes to something else. So no isn't a bad thing. It's good in when you can, and when it makes sense. Okay, so what happened from there? So my cousin and I decided that we were going to go to Barnes and Noble and find a book. I'm a big reader, and she likes, these kind of books too that give you helpful tips and stuff. And so we went and we found this book, Take Time for Your Life. Now, what's amazing about this book is it actually changed the trajectory of my entire life because it was very early life coaching. This was actually the infancy stages of life coaching. So I discovered that way back then when I was actually in grad school to become a guidance counselor. And I've been on those parallel tracks my whole life. Like I'm still a school counselor to this day and getting close to retirement age. But I've also had on the side, a bit of life coaching, and this is how I discovered it. I learned about Coach U and the ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation, all those things. Those were just early. And I think ICF is still around, and probably Coach U, but Coach U was probably one of the first, if not the first, coach training organization. But so coaching has gone in many directions since then, right? It's become mainstream. People use it for everything. But this is early life coaching. And when I was revisiting this book to make this video, it reminded me of those early coaching principles that I was really drawn to and what I wanted to do with people. And I hired my first coach then as well, who helped me to kind of get my life back in under control, So some of the concepts in this book is you prioritize yourself and what matters. Like you really think about what are your priorities in life, what is most important to you, and then you start to design your life more around that. Another thing that was a big thing in the early coaching days was we would talk about tolerations, and I believe that that's in here. Whether or not she used that word, I don't remember now, but it it was to look at the things in your life that are draining you, that are actually draining you of your energy. We often so much talk about, how do we increase our energy? We want to eat better and sleep more, and those are great things, and look at the stress. But this this idea of tolerations was really about digging into even like the things like that you put off, that every time you think about is a little energy drain. So it was really so good with diving into those things that are in your whole life. And let me show you something. This is, like I said, I found this old book. Look what I found in this. One of the exercises to do was like an activity study, and this is a bit of a mess, but this is from 1998. Look at this. What you did is you wrote the days, and it was just, you only did for like a week to kind of get an idea. And I know this is kind of used in productivity, but I just wanted to show you what I had done back then. And you write the different activities down the side. I had like how many hours I slept. I was doing an internship at the time for my grad school. I have worrying as a thing, because she said, I'm pretty sure I remember talking about that in the book. Paying bills, TV, grooming, like how much time I take in the shower and getting ready. How much time do I spend relaxing or feeling tired? Because that was the thing to notice, like when when you're tired and what do you do to restore yourself, kind of thing. Phone calls, childcare, being with friends and family. And sadly, look at this. I have this category, being with friends and family. 3 hours on a Thursday in this whole chart. Oh, that's a sad thing. Household tasks, daydreaming, reading, things like that. So I just thought that was so cool. And you just made this chart and I put in all the hours I spent on those tasks, but that was kind of interesting. So another thing that she goes through in this book is really looking at your finances and getting those kind of in control. Then she does go into what are the things that fuel your energy, like having more fun, eating well, getting enough rest, those kind of things. Activity, how do you exercise and move your body in ways that feel good and energize you? She also talks in this book about creating a support system, a community. And I've always been blessed to have strong people in my life that supported me, between my dad and my cousin and other people. So, like, just what is your support system? And how do you honor your spiritual well-being, and whatever that looks like to you? For some people it's a faith and religion and their church community. For some people it's more of a meditation practice or other religious practices. So how do you nurture that part of yourself, and then coming together on designing a life for you? So this book is actually still in print because I just ordered an updated one that should be coming soon, because I kind of wanted to see how it's evolved from then. Like I said, this is my original 1998 copy, and I'm going to be looking at the updated version. I'm sure that she's done a lot in what the last 98, 26, 7 years. So yeah, so I wanted to share this. So this here book was so foundational to who I am today and to the direction that my career has taken, my life has taken, and it's been so helpful to me. And I highly recommend it. If you feel like your life could use some more structure and support, this is a great resource, going back to the very early life coaching days. So, anyways, thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll see you on the next vid. Oh, hey there. Since I always forget, I'll let Miss Mischief handle this.